Welcome back, Brittney.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and doing this again.
Yeah.
Greet me, please.
Unfortunately, I was about to. Unfortunately, you're sitting next to Bill now. He was in the corner, so
right.
I know, with his snacks and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Let me just.
Goodness. If you start chewing on that Reese's right in the mic.
Oh, I'll be crackling that thing open.
Oh, my goodness. Well, not only were you brave enough to come back and share this with us, but you were also nice enough to have your doctor provide us blood work.
Yes.
Which, you know, many people won't do that. And I really appreciate that because, you know, that's some private medical stuff. And but for educational purposes, it's going to be really great.
Yeah, no problem.
So thanks. Well, before we get started into, because I have your log here and I have your blood work, what was your experience like with logging? What did you learn? Anything that you kind of...
I mean, I tried to be like as honest as possible because when you're logging, it's easy to be like, I'm not going to eat that because I have to log it. But I was like, I try to be as honest as possible. So what I did notice is I rely a lot on what I had said before is the protein drinks and the bars. And there's times throughout the day that I go quite some time without eating. And then also I noticed with the logging is that after jiu-jitsu, like, well, this was with the monitor, it would be like beeping at me, which I don't know what the numbers meant, but it would say urgent, low, and I'd be like, I just ate, and it was saying that. So
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because that's, excuse me. There's some really interesting things on here that that's the whole purpose of doing this data. Because we did family history last time. You have diabetes and all that in your family. And, you know, if we would have just given you some recommendations based on that family history, you know, we could have been wrong, and we would have been. So I'd like to start out, if you don't mind. We'll get to your log, and we'll talk about kind of what I'm seeing here. But I want to go over your blood work, if that's okay with you. So, again, you have a really good doctor.
Sticking with the HIV theme from last episode.
Oh, my gosh.
Dear.
Dude, Brittney's here this time. She will smack you.
With her foot.
On command, yes. She's very good at
kick.
it. So going through this is kind of how I go through with a patient, too. Your doctor sent this over, a lot of good stuff, a lot of standard stuff, and some stuff that most doctors don't do, which is really helpful. So the first thing is she did a complete blood count. And the reason why we do that, I wanted to make sure you weren't anemic or something else, you know, going on with especially anemia, you know, like if you're iron deficient or something.
Do you have a special ask for that blood? Like, or is that just a normal, if I say, hey, I want to do my blood workup? I know sometimes you have to ask for specific
and it depends on your doctor.
Okay. So you might have to.
Yeah, her doctor is a functional medicine physician.
So that's more standard. But
this is a standard test. It's called a CBC, a complete blood count with differential, and most doctors will do this for a checkup. I'm just kind of describing the importance of it. And there's some other, we don't need to go down into the details here, but there's some other values on here, like MCV, mean corpuscular volume, that if that's real high or real low, it can be indicative of different types of anemia. If it's real high, you know, like B12 deficiency and stuff like that. So it's stuff I would want to know.
Right.
It looks really good. There's no problems with anything on your complete blood count. And we'll try to do this in order of interest here. The next thing is pretty standard too. It's a comprehensive metabolic panel. And it basically looks at kidney function and liver function primarily. It also does fasting glucose, which, you know, I said it's of limited value because it's kind of just a snapshot of that day.
Right.
But that fasting glucose was 80, which is great. The reason why we do kidney function and liver function, first of all, liver function, I want to make sure, you know, people that are getting fatty liver from metabolic syndrome, or lots of alcohol intake, or drinking lots of high fructose corn syrup, which Bill, well, not necessarily now, but, you know, with this big Coke or Pepsi. Did you have a Pepsi?
Pepsi.
I'm
don't
sorry.
You ever say Coke?
I'm sorry.
Again.
But, you know, he'd be one that I'd want to check his liver out to make sure, because when fat starts infiltrating the liver, it inflames it, and you start getting elevated liver enzymes. You don't have that, which is great. We also check kidney function because If someone does have a compromised kidney function, we got to be careful with protein intake.
Okay.
If you have normal kidney function, protein, this is something that is passed erroneously. I don't know where it started, the fact that they said that high protein diets can cause kidney problems. That is absolutely not true. If you do have kidney problems, you do have to watch your protein, because that's where you clear some of the nitrogen from your protein intake.
Okay.
But anyway, it was good to look at, and it's great. Your kidney function looks excellent. And she also checked your thyroid, which was really important. Because, we could go through all this dietary stuff, and if your thyroid is tanked,
Right.
we were kind of beating our head against the wall. We'd want to get that fixed. Yours look great.
Good.
And so that looks really good.
You got a strong thyroid.
Nice.
Yes, that's right. It's really important. She did a lipid panel, which a lot of people are familiar with as cholesterol and things like that. We'll probably need to do a whole podcast on that, Bill. Cholesterol. Yeah, because there's so much to that.
And it was basically it was always looked at as like this indicator that is like, you're super unhealthy if you have any sort of high cholesterol.
Yeah, and there's a lot of detail and nuance to that
Right.
really needs to be talked about. What I look for right away with someone that has a family history of metabolic syndrome and diabetes is I look at their triglycerides fasting. This is crazy that they say the normal range here is up to 200. That is ludicrous.
Okay.
That if someone has like high 100 triglycerides, to me, that's not healthy.
Right.
I like to see it under 100. Yours was 70, which is fantastic,
Cool.
which means that, you're not producing a whole bunch of that stuff with the liver. Your doctor also tested a couple other things I thought were really cool. Of course, your regular cholesterol panels, it says your cholesterol is high. Well, what does that mean? Okay. And they say good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There's no such thing. It'd be like if Bill was riding a bus versus a train, there's good Bill and bad Bill, depending on what he rides. I mean, we all know he's bad in general, right? So my point is,
How long is that bus?
yeah, it's a short one. so
Beat me to it.
my I know that was kind of a softball over the plate, though, wasn't it?
Come
I
on.
know I wasn't
I
very.
was teeing you guys
Yeah,
up.
it was. Thank you. That makes me look good. But the carriers of cholesterol are the most important thing we want to look at. And your normal lipid panel doesn't really talk about that. It just talks about the amount of cholesterol being carried. That being said, what people talk about as good cholesterol is HDL cholesterol, which is looked at as, in general, as a positive thing to have higher. Yours is high. And so you have a ratio. I always look at triglycerides and HDL. You have low triglycerides, high HDL. And that is a good indicator that your metabolism is in the right direction. And it also, what we'll talk about in the cholesterol podcast when we do it, it also tells me something about probably what your carriers look like,
Okay.
which are the most important thing, because those are the things that get stuck in the artery walls and actually cause heart problems and vascular disease. Your doctor also did something just to, kind of dovetail right into that. She actually tested something called the lipoprotein B. It's, I know it's a lot of biochemistry talk here, but that is actually a piece of a protein specifically on the carriers of cholesterol that are known to cause problems.
Okay.
And that is, when you test that, it will give you exactly how much of those carriers are in there. Most doctors don't test that. It's really good because yours is low. It means you don't have a ton, because we don't, even if we have big carriers or small carriers, usually the big carriers are better. They're usually less prone to get stuck in the artery walls.
Okay.
But even big ones, if you got too much of them, you can still have problems. And so your doctor actually tested that, which is great.
So it's not necessarily the cholesterol number. You have to look into the carrier piece.
You sure do, because you could have normal cholesterol in a bunch of the carriers being, these small, dense things, and still have a problem. I mean, there's people that die of heart attacks with normal cholesterol all the time. And when you look down into it, so we'll talk a lot more about that, but you're exactly right. But yours came out great. So all in all, that's looking really good metabolically. And the last thing that I thought was really cool, most doctors don't do, is she tested your fasting insulin, which is cool because someone that is pre-diabetic or diabetic, their baseline insulin level is real high. And when your insulin level is high, it basically turns off the mechanisms to burn stored body fat. So if your insulin is high all the time as a baseline, it's going to be really hard to mobilize body fat to lose weight.
Okay.
But again, that goes into you don't have any other markers suggestive of a metabolic problem anyway. So it's not surprising that your insulin level is great.
Okay.
Okay. So
a lot of good news here, Doc. I need some bad news.
you want some bad news?
I need something. It's making me feel bad.
Yeah, we'll give you a little bit for Brittney. What we did find some things. Not on her blood work though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not on her blood work. I know. Look how excited he is about that.
I know. Jeez Louise.
I had a caramello on the way over.
In a Red Bull. He's cracked out over there.
There you go.
Well, going through, I'm not going to go through this day by day, but going through your log, you did a fantastic job on this. The big thing I noticed with your blood sugar. So, first of all, good news. You're tolerating your glucose intake, your starch intake really well. You're disposing of it well. Matter of fact, too well sometimes. Okay. After jiu-jitsu, not with your other workouts, but only after jiu-jitsu, even after you eat, your blood sugar tanks. And we got readings down into the 50s.
Yeah, so what is that? When you said good, you said something good, said something bad as her reactions, right?
Yep.
What does that look like for people that are maybe only doing the stabbing one on the finger? Like what do those numbers look like? What would be good?
That's great.
For the first part that you said, and what was bad?
In other words, when she did 2-hour measurement after she ate, none of those measurements was above 115.
Good.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, if she would have if she ate a meal, let's say, and she measured it 2 hours and it was still like 140, she wouldn't have been tolerating that level of carbohydrate.
So the meal that she had there, she's not tolerating it very well.
In that case, that's right.
And I then never saw those numbers. Like I never once saw 140. The highest I ever saw was right after training. Like literally looked off the mat and then looked at my reading, and it was 130.
Yep. That's normal. Your body's trying to your body's like, what are you doing, dummy?
Okay.
You're just trying to, it's like, because, it's like, that's really intense exercise. Okay. It's trying to mobilize from the liver.
Did you eat Chick-fil-A at all?
I did not. Well, actually, yes, I did. But I had a side salad. And that's
it?
With chicken nuggets on top.
Nice.
I did.
That's not going to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Bill is a prodigy with it,
A little. I mean, if you're going to go through that line, you got to.
Just for entertainment value, we're going to have him do a food log.
I thought he was going to.
He's a coward.
I know.
Yeah.
Olivia said she could remember.
I was scared you guys would call me a diabetic or something.
Well, no, we'll see what the numbers show, dude. You know what I'm saying? I was like, it's no judgment. We'll see what the numbers show. Okay. What I did notice and kind of why you're under eating after jiu-jitsu, right? And when that happens, so you're clearing all that muscle glycogen, that stored form of sugar, because of how intense. And like I said, I've watched you roll. You roll at high intensity. It's great. And so you're clearing out a lot of that muscle glycogen, and it's this empty tank now. And it's just sucking blood sugar in.
Yeah,
right?
I had no idea that I was under eating because I felt satisfied, but
right. But what your body has to do when it drops that low with blood sugar, it's like, oh shit, and you get a stress response with cortisol and all that, and it will try to make some glucose and get it from somewhere.
What was the marker that told you that she's under eating?
2 hours after jiu-jitsu, after she ate, we have blood sugars in 55.
Okay, so she did jiu-jitsu.
She
then ate. Yep. 2 hours later, she was measuring in the 50s.
Yep.
And that's an indicator of like, you should be refeeding more.
Yeah, she's not feeding enough with that.
It would be like an hour after I ate, and it was already like in the 50s.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
So after, I lost it. Oh, would the cortisol suppress ghrelin then?
You're asking a great question. Olivia's asking about ghrelin, which is an appetite hormone. That's a little... So ghrelin will stimulate appetite. It works with typically it's worked with the stress response. So I'd have to look that up again. I don't think cortisol suppresses ghrelin.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't make sense because your body's trying to get some energy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If she's underfeeding, you would think that she would want to. I mean, who knows? It's that whole thing that hormonal mechanisms behind eating. There's leptin, ghrelin, there's peptide YY. There's all kinds of them that interact. It gets very complex.
I just asked because she's saying that she felt full or satisfied. So that's why I was like...
I think I'm also kind of used to, like, I've been, like, in this mindset of if I eat too much at night, then I'm going to be fat. So I'm like, I could eat more, but I mentally have kind of been like, I'm good,
So, right. And so you've conditioned yourself that way. Right. I would argue that, getting more carbohydrate and protein after jiu-jitsu specifically, because if you look at your other workouts, when I'm looking at this, it doesn't drop like that. And what that means is you're not emptying near as much muscle glycogen.
Right. And
so you really have to, this is important for everyone listening. And again, let me just remind everyone, this is very personalized to Brittney. You can't take any of this stuff as advice for yourself. You really need to kind of go through the same process. Right. Talk to your own doctor, kind of do the work.
Yeah, but you can probably glean some questions that we're asking that you should be asking your doctor.
Agree. That's the whole purpose of this. That's exactly right. But what Brittney needs to do may be completely different when someone else needs to do. Now, you should be feeding more. Okay. With that. And then you can test again.
Do we have an example of maybe, do you have portions on there? Like,
Yeah, I do. You can share. I'm cool.
No, she totally does.
King size.
But, for instance, like a half a cup of rice. She had a half a cup of jasmine rice.
Okay.
She'll need probably a cup after jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or play with that.
Okay.
And then what she would do then, she doesn't have to measure because she's pretty darn good, but I would encourage her to measure after jiu-jitsu until she kind of fine-tunes that.
Right, okay.
So then you can kind of get it in line with what your other ones were doing.
Okay.
Would that have effect, because I think you've mentioned this before, where when I am, let's say I do some hard training at night, and I don't refeed with very many carbs. Like I noticed it was primarily just protein. The next day, I'm really vascular. I'm really lean, or at least I feel more lean in that moment, but I'm way more noticeably sore.
Yep.
Is that linked to not refeeding with a carb?
That's right, because what's happening is you're dropping carbohydrate. There's a lot of water that gets bound up with carbohydrate. And that the vascularity you're feeling and, kind of...
it's like noticeable, but the soreness is right there with it.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so, but when I do like a cup of rice, it's typically about how much, maybe a little bit more that I'll end up taking in. It feels completely different.
That's right.
The next day.
And that's why it's so important to do that.
Okay.
So training is the input. The adaptation and the benefit you get out of it has to do with the recovery process, as you know. And that part of that recovery process is proper nutrition afterwards.
Okay.
Right? Because then we can get into kind of that stress response going. And long term, it doesn't do good things to the body.
And if your goal is weight loss, right? So I've had some people kind of talk to me a little bit since the first podcast, and I've had some input. You know, just one person kind of was talking about like, I shouldn't be eating after training. Like, I don't need to eat late before bed, and that I should stop eating at 6 and not refeed.
They're crazy.
Okay.
And are just uninformed.
Okay.
That's like a really old, I don't know if method's the right thing, but common knowledge was never eat past 6 or 8 or something of that
Again,
sort.
it depends
I'm
on
not
what you're
sitting
doing.
on the couch, though.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's the key. She's training, and most people have no idea the type of intensity grappling.
Right.
Right. And so that's why it's so individual. And having this is a perfect example, like you said, of a cookie cutter type of thing. Well, you shouldn't do this. If you did that, you would get into a catabolic state. Your body would be like, what the heck are you doing to me? Okay. And it's going to start getting that glucose from somewhere, muscle wasting.
Okay.
Okay. So I know it's counterintuitive. You're like, wait, I got to eat more to lose weight. Yeah. But it's not only when you eat with the carbohydrate, but this dovetails nicely into the second piece. The only thing else I noticed, you're under eating protein.
Okay.
In general.
Okay.
So this has been, there's so many, like, how much should I eat?
Right.
Right. So there's broad ranges. You'll see what the USRDA, the recommended daily allowance, that's basically just to survive in a sedentary person.
Okay.
If you use those numbers, you're going to drastically undereat the amount of protein you specifically need with the activity you're doing. What I tell people like you, especially athletes, is do a gram per pound of your goal body weight.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So let's make some numbers up.
Okay.
Let's say Bill's trying to lose weight and he wants to get to 170.
Okay.
Okay. I don't care what he's at now.
Okay.
If he's probably 250 right now.
Hardly.
But
chest.
but he would eat, if his goal was 170, he would try to get 170 grams of protein a day. That's a lot. Okay. But for weight loss, protein is satiating. It tells the body I've had enough fuel, and it's anabolic in that it will help rebuild all that kind of destruction you're raining down on your body during training.
Okay.
So it's like, well, how do I measure that? A good rule of thumb is it's not, you don't take like a steak and say, well, the steak weighs this much, so that's how much protein it is.
Okay.
It's usable, bioavailable protein. And a good rule of thumb for people is if you have a kitchen scale for cooked meat, and per ounce of cooked meat, you get about 7 grams of usable protein. So if you had like 4 ounces of a steak or something, which is not big.
Yeah.
And that's right there. It's 28
Okay.
grams of protein.
Okay.
But if you have a big steak, I mean, you could get up to 50 pretty easily.
Okay.
So you can see, so if we're looking at doing, let's just make up a number, 150 grams. Okay. Let's say that was a weight class goal you had.
Okay.
Then you'd want to try to get 150 grams in.
Okay.
And that's a good way to do that. And you'll find that challenging. You're like, oh no.
So what about when, like the Premier protein shakes that I kind of rely on midday when I'm working and stuff.
Yeah.
They say like 30 grams of protein. You said that's not equal to like eating actual protein from meat.
Look, if someone has to do supplemental protein to do that, I understand. It's hard to, sometimes it's hard throughout the day to get that much in from meat or, and by the way, animal products are the best, most bioavailable. I mean, you can get equivalent grams of protein plant-based, but you have to eat a ton more calories to get that. And I'm just be honest, they're not as bioavailable, regardless of what people say. People, and look, if vegan was the way to eat and it was the most healthy, I'd be doing it. I understand the ethical things people have, and I completely respect that. But let's not try to change biochemistry. Okay, it is what it is. But anyway, if you were to do supplemental protein like whey, just get some whey protein, mix your own.
Okay.
Because it's not the protein in those things that's the problem. It's all, if you look down the label, like we talked about before, vegetable oils, there's all kinds of stuff that promotes inflammation to the body that the liver's got to deal with.
Do we have a good brand? The one that we have that doesn't have that crap in it?
It's super hard to find something pre-made, Bill, and I'll tell you why. You might, but because they have to preserve it. if you sell it as a pre-made something, it's got to have stuff in there to stop it from kind of going bad.
Right.
Yeah, they have all those things that help it mix well.
The whole 9 yards, and none of that stuff is great for you.
Right.
It's not optimum. What I would do is I get a whole bunch of just pure whey protein. I'll mix it with like macadamia nut butter or something, whatever you want. You can add in there.
We do a little. It's pretty dense with protein, but it's it's probably 2 cups of, maybe even more, but it's about 2 cups of Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
And then whatever protein we have.
It's a whey isolate.
Yeah, like a whey isolate.
Yeah, I put that in there.
Yeah.
Mix it, and then I do some. I slice up some strawberries,
perfect,
some blueberries, and then we put monk fruit.
Yeah,
and a couple of drops of stevia. And it tastes like acai.
So people that tolerate dairy, that's great. Yeah,
Not me.
Huh?
It doesn't affect me actually.
Greek yogurt, it doesn't bother me either.
But if I take, if I sniff a bowl of cereal, I'm out.
So whatever you tolerate, that's a great way to do it.
It ends up being pretty dense because I think 1 scoop is 25 grams, but then
you add some more.
That much Greek yogurt by itself is, I think, another.
It's probably about 25.
Yeah. So you get 50 right out.
That there's all kinds of ways to do it. Just be creative, but I would make your own.
Mix it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And in the Greek yogurt is another thing you got to look at. Depending on what brand, there's some really good brands that are pretty solid. There's some other ones that have a bunch of crap in it. So just look at it. If it has a ton of, you know what I mean? If it has a ton of stuff.
Siggy's? I don't know. It's plain.
Yeah. Okay. You guys can, you guys just read the labels. If it has just a couple of ingredients, probably good.
What about horse meat?
Why?
Okay.
Goodness.
I'll just take that.
Take that L. The hate mail, please send to Bill. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know.
I'm joking. I think it's illegal in America. What'd you say?
Probably.
Well, I actually had 2 questions. One was going back to the carbs post-workout.
Yep.
So you were saying that she should do, maybe like a cup and then kind of like see what her glucose is off of that.
Yep.
What range does she want to be?
So
like the low end and the
high. And so at the previous one, our first podcast, we talked about Rob Wolf wrote about this in his book, Wired to Eat. He talked about 90 to 115 is kind of a range that's, reasonable. I think I talked about under 120. Okay. I mean,
so that's a good place to be.
Afterwards. Within that range, I think is a good one for 2 hours afterwards. If you start pushing that envelope and you're starting like in the 130, below that, I don't know. I mean, if you're in the 80s, I wouldn't worry about that. But 55, like you were in the 50s, you're under eating it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and getting some a good whack of protein with that will help level that out too.
Okay.
Because, protein can be made into carbohydrate as well too. So,
But in general, with low blood sugar, you don't want to be below 70, right? Just in general?
You'd be amazed in general. But people that have done that for a while kind of get, the brain adapts to it, right? And they don't have near the kind of, like right now, if I dropped to 55 or something, I'm not used to being down there, I'd be kind of all whacked out, more so than usual.
But she's obviously been doing.
She has been right where she's living there. She probably probably
been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Since I started.
Well, but it's a stress on the body.
Yeah.
Right, and we want to eliminate it as much as possible because you're putting in the inputs. You're doing great. The hardest thing to get people to lose weight is actually to exercise. That's not your problem. No. To that point, you could also consider what you're doing in the morning.
Okay.
I know you love Peloton. Oh my God!
All right?
My hamstring is cramping.
See, the only one drinking Red Bull and Reese's is cramping over here. Brittney and I are
liquid IV.
Maybe.
You want somebody? You okay?
Rub down.
Okay, we'll take care of you, man.
Oh, Chris will.
It's all good with friends, right? you could also consider, you don't have to, but you could also consider, because I know you like Peloton, and I know you dig it. And I would never, I hate to tell people.
I have a headband and I drink the Kool-Aid.
You got it.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking.
But you enjoy it. Yeah, and that's great. I'm very reticent to tell people to stop doing something they like for exercise. But you could consider maybe doing less of that and then incorporating like a little strength training program.
More strength. Okay.
In there in the morning. It might be it might also help you kind of level out those blood sugars. But
how many days a week? Like, should I be resting? Let's just say 2.
Yeah, well, put it this way: resting.
I'm not resting ever because I'm a mom. But
right.
I mean,
as far as your exercise,
yeah.
I would consider this, especially the days after jiu-jitsu. I would have those almost like an active recovery day. You don't have to rest, but you could do like go for a walk or something low intensity, right? To give your body, and that will dovetail into a question that we have later about muscle soreness and stuff like that.
So, I mean, can you do low intensity strength training?
Yep.
Okay.
You sure can. Just give your body a chance. Your body's trying to adapt to that input you gave it.
Right.
And if you crush it the next day, we're not giving that time to adapt. As you get older, you need more and more of that time.
Okay.
Do they have Peloton, like, because it's like a room, right? And there's a bunch of people in it.
No, she has it at home.
No, I know, but you join like a group.
Oh,
online.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do they have it like where you guys just do casual rides together? Like there's not much intensity and you just kind of chit chat as you pedal?
No, it's not. It's not really like that. But
well, I'm saying maybe they have one.
So no, they have low impact rides.
Oh.
Yeah. So they have like ones that are like more HIIT, and they have like hill climbs, and they have
on the beach
intervals.
I would stay away from the HIIT in the morning if possible, especially after jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I would just tone that down a little bit, a little strength training.
And I do a little bit of strength with it,
Good.
but maybe I'll just not do the cardio.
Well, someone came up with a strength training for grappling program.
I gotta adjust my rims;
Grappling
they're a
with
little
podcasts.
off right now.
YouTube.
I know. I know.
Series
I watched it. Now I just got to do it.
But there is a lot to be said for doing something that you enjoy too. So I'm not going to try to take all the fun out of your life either.
It will be fun.
Okay. But those are the big things, I think, and not a whole lot, right? But just counterproductively, like you got some advice saying you shouldn't never eat after, which is terrible advice. And I'm not trying to come down and say it's an evil person, but they just don't know.
Right.
They're trying to kill you.
But under eating long term and not feeding the activity you're doing can also go against your body composition goals.
So if she's under eating, she's working out a lot.
Yeah.
How am I not like
at
what
least
I want to look like?
Yeah, like why? Now I get we're two different people, but when I had my large weight loss, it was over like probably 2 years, I would say. The initial like 40 pounds. I was eating, I was training a lot too, but I was still eating like fast food, not all the time, but during the week. I typically was intentionally only doing like, if I was going to eat fast food for lunch, it was because I trained in the midday and then I ate fast food after that. And then I also would train at night. But I would think, so I lost weight through it and I was drinking like a fish. I would think I would have what she's having, and that's kind of just stalemate, like just plateaued. And she, by overworking out almost and underfeeding, she would at least like burn muscle or like a endurance runner.
She might be. You're a dude, though.
Yeah, I was just gonna point that out. I feel like guys just
man,
it's different, man.
Not fair,
and it's not.
Yeah, right.
I'm not saying that applies to everybody, but in general, it is. Women are kind of hardwired to hold on to things, especially body fat.
And I think I've been doing this for a long time. Like this isn't a new way of eating or a new way of life. Like before jiu-jitsu, I was doing classes at 24-hour like boot camp and things like that. So I feel like almost like maybe with you, with your training, it was something like different. With me, I think I've been just like doing this forever. There's been no shock.
That's a great point. Your body will adapt to things. That's like if you look at, Lance Armstrong and his riding ability, and then you look at when he did a marathon, it's a neurologic efficiency that comes with something you do all the time. And that's why changing up those workouts are good to kind of, because when your body becomes very efficient in a movement, it's then you're not getting the same input that you get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when Bill's doing something now novel that he hadn't done before, to your point, he's now creating an input that wasn't there before.
Okay.
You had that input for quite a while.
Yeah.
You've gotten to almost a steady state where your body's like, yeah, this lady's crazy. I got to hold on to something here. And there is a set point that your body likes to hold on to. Everyone's.
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
You kind of told me a protein that I should hit daily. What about carbohydrates? Should I be only having carbohydrates after jiu-jitsu training, or should I be having them throughout the day like I have been?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't change that.
Okay.
You're handling them fine.
Okay.
Again, some people do fine with them.
Okay.
In general, but you should do more after your training for sure.
Okay. And should I eat more often, or does it matter as long as
you're getting it in however you're going to get it in during the day?
Okay.
Yeah. There's no that whole you got to eat every 2 hours. That's not necessarily true at all. As long as you're getting it in when you can get it, meeting your goals for the day.
What about like sparring rounds? So she has good intensity, but I think. Do you usually, like, how many rounds do you get typically? I mean, you have kids, so sometimes you can't control when you got to leave.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 after class.
But we got situationals too.
And we have situationals.
Right. We always got situationals,
yeah,
which are obviously like very short sprints, essentially, for the most part.
Or unless we're doing stay with our partner, which we've done the last few.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just 5 seconds to switch and then go again.
Yeah.
Would you say we want to try to get more rounds than that? Because I know in my journey, I was doing like a lot of sparring rounds. And I don't know if that good, bad, or that's kind of why I'm asking. Should we look for her to get more?
Nope.
Or is situationals and just a couple is going to suffice?
Yeah, because look what it's doing right now. Just that input she's doing right now.
Yeah.
And she's not refeeding that, right? If she did more, she would need even more. Yeah, she'd deplete her muscle glycogen even more. I would keep those other variables the same.
Okay.
And if you're feeling better, I would suspect that you would be feeling more recovered, and you could probably, if you had the opportunity to do some more rounds, you probably could. Yeah,
there's days where I feel like I wish I could get more rounds in, but lately, I think like since I decided that I was going to do a competition, I felt like I've been doing maybe like 2 or 3, but it's like back to back.
Totally.
And, by the second or third, I'm like, still 3 minutes left, Like, I'm totally peeping at the clock.
And another thing you could do if time wasn't a factor is you could do a hard round. Then you could have a little like a little bit of amino acid kind of carb, a little bit between, do a round. Just like in competition, you would never do. They don't have someone finish a match and go right into another one. Do you at least have another round? Okay. Right. So you could almost do it like an interval even, and then kind of get some of your refeeding a little bit between rounds. Not a whole lot, because you don't want a whole lot on your stomach, but that give you a little bit of glucose, a little bit of amino acid for the protein. Yeah, you could do that too, and do like a hard round, take a round off, a hard round, take a round off. Okay. Which would mimic a competition better anyway. And as you creep up towards 40, you got to look at those kind of tactics for recovery too. Okay. You can't be like, this 25-year-old savage that does 10 rounds in a row, right? It just doesn't make any sense, because you should be training because then your rolls that you do get, you can get higher intensity.
Mm-hmm.
So then your second and third roll can be pretty much on par with your first one if you had a little bit of,
Fine.
So you could do stuff like that.
Okay.
I think would be helpful. But the bottom line is you got to get that refeed in a little bit more. But not a whole lot you do very well. I mean, I would just clean up some of those pre-made things, and it would be pretty easy for you to do. But yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing this stuff because I think it's going to help a lot of people just kind of think about this stuff a little better.
So going forward,
yeah,
she has a couple of the marching orders, right, which are refeed better, right?
After training.
Yeah, after training.
And she'll play with it too, by the way. So then she can test a couple more times after she's given a little
fine-tune it.
And fine-tune it.
I'll log again for 10 days and then wear this again?
You don't have to do a full one like you did. Why don't you just log after your training?
Okay.
Because that's the only place
that we're having a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that way it'd be a lot less onerous for you. You know, then you can be like, oh, okay, now I did this amount. Let's just say white rice.
Are you putting feeling in there too? Like how you feel?
Yeah.
She did.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. She did a great job with this. Very detailed. A lot of good data points. But that's what I would do and then because what you'll need, you'll have to just fine tune that yourself. There's no like, oh, well, gosh, Brittney, you did this, so you need to do exactly this. I don't know.
Okay.
And then you'll get a feeling. The best thing you could do is over time, you can get an intuitive sense like, okay, I had a real hard training session tonight. I kind of know what I need. Or tonight, I only did a couple rolls that weren't that intense. I probably, you'll get more of an intuitive sense of how you need to refeed.
Okay.
And that will be helpful for you long term.
Do you have a carb, like let's say a carb number that I should be hitting or not really? Just go off of how I feel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're doing well except for
your
after training.
Okay.
And so I want you to kind of tinker with that a little bit.
For example, we do typically a cup each of white rice is like our go-to.
Yep.
Starchy carb.
That's mine too.
Same.
And we do sometimes it's a little bit less. Like I think we made a cup and a half and split it. But for the most part, we will do a cup of white rice, and that's like our easy one. Sometimes, what are those? The orange fries?
Yeah, the sweet potato fries. Those are legit too.
We just cook a huge batch and eat till our heart's done.
Super good.
I love those.
Yeah. Today after training, I did on the way home. I got this little sumo orange. Those big those are amazing.
Yeah.
I did one of those after training today. I felt great.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's all you ate after training?
Yeah. I should have eaten.
Oh.
It was getting the podcast done. Yeah. I should have had some more protein.
Okay.
But I at least wanted, so I didn't get all jittery.
Yeah,
I at least wanted to get some carbohydrate.
Yeah. I like even like sugars, obviously, but I'll.
Really? Shocking.
I know. So I like to have a little sugar, like a banana or a couple of the like cuties, the little oranges. I'll have a couple of those like before training, not right before, but maybe a couple hours. And I feel like it helps like with my blood sugar or something, like gets a little higher. So when I'm training, it doesn't just, I just feel like a little bit more energy.
There can be a performance increase if you haven't topped off your muscle glycogen before too, for sure.
Which, so if I did a midday training session and I'm doubling up that day, or the day before I didn't refeed super well, I would really notice a difference.
You would notice it, yeah. That's what happens when people get, jiu-jitsu. They decide they want to do full-on carnivore or just keto. They end up crashing pretty hard. Their training suffers as far
especially
as that goes.
If they're training more than like a basic hobbyist, which is maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
For sure.
You're going to really start burning.
I'm just saying you really need to feed your activity, right? I know a lot of people like me, I'll do on my non-training days, like extra carbohydrate makes me fat. Just does. I don't handle it that well. So on my non-training days, I really try to kind of lower that, but that's for me.
Yeah.
And then on my training day, I'll make sure I refeed that because I get into trouble if I don't.
So we go heavy on like Taco Tuesdays kind of thing, but it's like multiple days a week, and we'll but we just do it in a bowl, right?
Okay.
So it's all the stuff you put in a taco and we put in a bowl. Any reason to stay away from? Because I know we've talked about fats, so your avocado and guac and sour cream, that sort of stuff. Not doing it after training.
So there's a thought that, right after training, the optimal thing to do would be protein and carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
The thought behind that is you're driving in an insulin response, and then, if you're doing a whole bunch of fat with that, you're not really in the mode of burning.
Mm-hmm.
Having a little bit of guacamole is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think if you wanted to try it really cleanly, at your refeed, like a carb protein thing as much as possible.
If you're really going to go, okay, if you want to be more strict or optimal, keep a fat like that for pre-training lunch or something like that.
For sure. Or the next day, a non-training day, which is what I do, is where I'll have like a bunch of, I love guacamole, right? Avocados are great. Good source of fiber, fat. And I do that with protein. And that's kind of, and that works great. And I limit my carbohydrate on those days, but then I kind of flip it around after my training meal. I don't know. I mean, the human ideally, we should be able to deal with all kinds of different metabolic flexibility, dealing with that. But if you want to try to optimize things, right, you would try to keep it carb protein.
Well, I feel like since I
for your refeed
got down to like a weight that I'm happy with and a composition that I'm fine with, that like maintenance is just way easier. Now I don't even pay attention too much if it's like having my guacamole after training or before or whatever, because I feel like once I've gotten to the point, I don't have to be quite as meticulous.
Yeah.
But getting down, there was a point once I started really making it a goal that, okay, I'm not going to do this unless I trained. I'm not going to do sugars unless it's post-training. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
I do the same thing. Like last night, I didn't train, and we had tacos from Marco's Taqueria. Amazing. With chips and all kinds of stuff. And I know what I'm doing, though. What I'm doing is, it's informed consent. I'm like, it's probably not the best thing, but you know what? I'm going to do that once a week, and that's okay. You got to live, too.
I think GSP's talked about that.
Yeah.
On maybe a Lex podcast.
And it's a little reset, too, sometimes. Sometimes if you get super, it's good, just throw something at your body there. It'll adapt to it. As long as that doesn't become like, 4 days a week.
Right. So, like, in the next 6 weeks, if I have, a goal in mind, and I know that it's not so much weight, like you said, you don't want people to be focusing on the scale, but if I take measurements and going forward in the next 6 weeks, if I really want to make some big improvement, you're telling me that I need to eat more after training and then clean up like more of the stuff that's like pre-made, like the protein bars.
And eat more protein.
And you think just that alone is going to make a big difference?
We'll see.
Okay.
It's one of those things. The body's a black box sometimes.
Okay.
Do you get
it theoretically?
Okay.
Do you get post-training jiu-jitsu? Do you get like a little bit of shake?
Oh yeah.
Do you get that glycogen dump where you can kind of feel like your hands are kind of have a shake?
Yeah, you go to pick up my phone to text, and I'm like, I look like I have Parkinson's or something.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm shaky all the time. Matter of fact, they make fun of me.
Well, you're shaky right now, and it has nothing to do with working out.
I know. A little old.
Do you know why we're here, Chris?
No. What day is it? I don't know what day it is anymore.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So was this helpful for you?
Yeah, it is. And I think that I'm going to do this again. And I'm someone that likes numbers, like obviously for not to do this for the rest of my life.
No.
But I think I'm going to kind of put down the numbers so that I have something to look back on of like, this is where I was at 2 hours after. But then when I did that, this is what I did, so that I have something to refer to.
It's great. As long as it's for a learning process and doesn't become like a neurotic way of life.
Yeah, which I can become that. Like,
well, a lot of us can. And that's just, that causes stress on its own.
Right.
We don't want to do that. But as far as kind of figuring stuff out and what, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions that came in.
Did you have any more questions before?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Libby, Pookie, any questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, we got a couple of questions from listeners.
Okay.
And
before we do that, can I remind people something?
You wrote a book.
No. No. Please submit questions from last week's podcast from the strength training program that you're doing.
We got a couple already.
Okay.
Grappling with podcast at Gmail, or just message the social media pages.
Because we're going to do phase 2 coming up here in a couple weeks, and Andrew and Bill and I are going to work on doing the video for that here soon. So that'd be a good time. Just keep submitting those questions. But you have some questions from listeners.
Yes.
Okay.
So we got 2 here that I think are fairly applicable to the topics. So there's some others that we'll push to the next episode. First one, it came from Brittney's first episode, and it was, what can be gleaned from DNA tests for fitness and diet or anything else pertinent? So can they get anything from doing a DNA test that pertains to fitness, diet, or anything like that? I think we've talked briefly that there could be some confusion maybe with a DNA test compared to blood tests, but maybe you can touch on that.
You like the 23andMe or whatever?
I think that's
genetic testing.
Maybe DNA, maybe not, maybe, but I think
so.
DNA tests and blood work is maybe getting conflated a little bit.
Yeah. So remember something about DNA, and it's your genetic code, and it's different from, that's what makes us individuals. There are, especially with metabolism, muscle mass, stuff like that, of course, there are predispositions based on certain genetics and different, what we call single nucleotide polymorphisms. In other words, well, what that means is there's a certain genes that part of those genes has changed, and that change will determine like how that gene is expressed. Eye color, different things like that. Okay. What we found, though, is even people with like a bunch of genetic markers that say, oh, you're predisposed to become diabetic. Maybe. But all that stuff isn't super helpful at this point, in my opinion.
Fitness.
And nutrition. Yeah. Because what's more important is the epigenetics, the environmental signals that are sent that act on your genetics. Because we've seen identical twin studies where they have the exact same genetics. One person's a bodybuilder and the other one's a marathon runner. They look really different, right? Because of the environmental inputs that are given their body. With one, you've seen like a twin that smokes and the other one doesn't. Super old, So it's kind of important to look at your ancestry, maybe, of where, in general, are you Northern European? Are you more equatorial? As far as that can give you some ideas about like food that you may or may not tolerate. But I don't think they're very useful. I think something like, because it's all theoretical. What really matters, because if, let's say we got a bunch of data on Brittney and we know her family history, and we're like, gosh, Brittney, you're going to be diabetic and blah, blah, blah. Well, what we've seen with this actual testing is, no, she's not even close to that, because she's made a lot of good environmental inputs during her life so far that she doesn't have to walk that road. And so I think data collection is much better than that. I think because people, especially, you can go down a rabbit hole of like, and they're called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. They will do basically, well, you have this % chance of developing this cancer or whatever. And then it sends people down a rabbit hole and anxiety and all that. And it's just not true. We're not there yet where we can do that.
Okay. And
I don't think it's helpful for DNA testing. Now, what we did, blood testing, which is, this is what her metabolism is doing. in real time, regardless of what her genetic code is much more valuable.
And mixing the blood testing with the data collection of nutritional and feeling and stuff like that. Then also adding in the glucose monitor.
Yeah. But but it is good to know like family history, right? Because you kind of like, oh, that's a cautionary tale there. You know, my dad, you know. So, I mean, it's helpful, but as far as going out and getting your DNA testing, I don't think it's helpful.
From a fitness and
nutrition
maybe a little bit when it comes to like family history and stuff like
maybe,
that.
But it's not your destiny. I don't think so.
Okay.
Good question.
Then we have another one that you had referenced earlier about soreness. So someone asks, is there a certain supplement that they can take to help overcome soreness and recover along with doing this kind of training? So I believe they're talking about the strength protocol and jiu-jitsu. Other than just taking Bomba, aka juice, horse meat. They say they've taken time off before, and when they come back, they feel like a different person. Like I assume in a good way. After they take a little time off, the first day back, they feel like they have more strength and energy. They might even be able to get out of someone's side control at some point. This is a lower belt that often gets stuck in side control. But 2 days later, after training, they will be feeling sore and weak again.
Yep.
Is there a supplement to do this?
So that's a good question.
Well, actually, Olivia, if you can go to this camera, please. This is where our sponsor comes in.
So yes, it's Reese's. What is that? Nutrageous.
I'll do a review on the YouTube page.
I think there's randomized controlled trials that show that decreases muscle soreness
and testosterone.
So no, it's a good question. Really, this has to do kind of what we were talking about with Brittney. If you, and you may have personal experience with this too, if you do an adequate refeeding and, oh, by the way, you hydrate with an electrolyte, replace your electrolytes, super important for recovery. Sleep is really important. And if you're sore the next day, what's helped a lot of people is not just completely take it off, do some active recovery, get some blood flow going, but not to a high intensity. Use that day for some mobility work or some low level,
This is joint and muscle.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure. So you want to, active recovery is always the best. Again, you're getting blood flow.
And that's what they have pro athletes doing, right?
That's right.
When they get injured, every day they're doing something.
You don't, and their experience of being able to take some days off and come back feeling strong, guess what? They've recovered.
Right.
And they may want to, if they're a lower belt, I would, I don't know. I'm going to do a stereotype here, but they're probably going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and every match is win at all costs, and it's like, hey, you might want to change up your training a little bit. And there's an adaptation period to getting your body kind of resilient against jiu-jitsu. Let's be honest. I can tell you, I was like, when you were a white belt, I'd never been so sore in my life.
Oh yeah. And so bruised. It's like how I used to be like one big bruise for like.
It's like someone beat you with a baseball bat, right?
Lydia would take photos of her legs.
Yeah.
Because we're always feared that someone was gonna be like,
say that you're
what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, Carrie would go see some of her patients with like bruises on her face, and they're like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody that knows Carrie knows that there would be no abusing that lady.
No.
So
you walk in.
I would be broken.
Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Look like you're.
So a lot of that, there's a bunch of parts of that. Do an active recovery the next day. Make sure you're fully hydrated, and that doesn't mean to drink electrolyte replacement too.
Yeah, I like the liquid IV.
Stuff like that is great. Element.
So the element stuff, when you started getting us on that.
Yeah.
Which is Rob Wolf's.
Yes, Rob Wolf's. Yeah.
It's sodium, magnesium,
and potassium.
Yep. And you just throw it in the water, and that helped. Like I started drinking that during sparring, and then you told me, dude, we're sweating so much.
Yep.
Throw 2 packets in there, which I thought you were crazy.
Yep.
because I thought I saw you doing like lines with this stuff in the corner.
Dude, I do lines with it. No and kidding. Then,
2 packets. I'm placebo. I don't know. It felt better. Like
yeah,
literally.
I put 2 packets in like for something this big. If Olivia can see what I'm holding here, I usually do a packet in this, but I have a big one that I do. The 64 ounce, I'll put 2 packets in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I've been doing that in like 12 ounces.
Wow, you're a psycho. Now you need the fluid too, not just the electrolytes. Okay. Yeah, I do 64 ounces. You're so crazy. You're so crazy.
Just straight shot in the
don't listen to Bill.
A little thick going down.
A little thick. I put 2 packets in about 64 ounces, and that way I'm getting because it's very true. Make sure they're getting a good refeed, like we talked about with Brittney. That'll help immensely. You probably experience the same thing when you're getting enough carbohydrate afterwards.
What? BCAAs?
Yeah, branched chain amino acids.
Is that the other thing, Liv, that I started taking that after?
Sure.
And I feel like that also, and sometimes I'm mixing the element with that.
That's right. And so,
crazy.
But no, because amino acids are protein. And the branched chain amino acids, especially leucine, drives anabolic responses. Definitely helps recovery. It hits something called mTOR. We don't need to go into that. Mammalian target of rapamycin.
Sure.
But it flips on the anabolic switch to help kind of rebuild. It's a part of that recovery process.
So I'm getting more anabolic.
Yeah, you're supporting that rebuilding process basically, and that's what's helping, because muscle soreness is from micro tears in the muscle. Right. This whole lactic acid thing. That is a pet peeve of mine. If you ever see me want to go on a rant, start talking about flushing lactic acid, that's just nonsense. Okay. And we should talk about that sometime in a podcast, because that is not what's going on. Lactate anyway. I'm gonna go rant on that. I don't want to do that right now.
Could you milk me?
Yeah. Are you a cat? You got nipples?
You said lactate.
Lactate is actually a sugar. It's a byproduct of glycolysis.
I know.
Yeah. And so it was erroneously, and still in the fitness world and even the medical world, they always talk about lactic acid making things sore. No, that's not right.
I learned something today.
Yeah. And I'll talk about, we'll talk about that at some point. Okay. You actually are doing muscle damage, causing tears. There is an acidic environment outside of the cells, but it's not caused by lactate. Anyway, sorry, rant over. But that active recovery by doing something and getting the blood and the muscles moving will help that soreness.
Okay, so for this gentleman, he's the reason he comes back 2 days later and feels immedially better is because he is recovering.
That's right.
Supplement.
Let's
Don't worry about the supplement.
No, at all. Because
except for the refeed, if you want to count refeeding.
Yeah. So let's stay away from that right now. We can do we can do a podcast on some performance enhancing supplements too. But let's get the house built right. Let's get the foundation right before we start putting on little decorations on the outside.
Work on his potential over intensity.
Yeah, monitor that. Not every roll has to be crazy.
Active rest. So on his days off, when he has a couple of days in
active recovery.
Active recovery. Just moving around.
Yep. Stuff like yoga.
Sure.
Right?
The thing is, I think, yes, I agree. But I think it can be tough for especially dudes.
Yep.
To do something like that.
Well, get over it. Okay. Because it's good for you.
Get over it.
No, but you don't have to do that. But something where you can
basic stretching.
But not just a walk here, a short hike or something. It helps a lot.
Clapping.
Yeah, whatever you like.
I saw it on a show on Discovery. They were working out clapping, and I was like, nice. That's pretty sick. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much his.
Okay.
His.
No, it's a really good question. I'm not trying to get, but I mean,
you're being a real jerk.
I know, but that's what I would really focus on, and then we can talk about some of the various supplements that can help performance and, other things that might help recovery.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we're going to have a recovery episode.
We will have a recovery episode,
we do have a recovery episode. We have a stress episode. We have Andrew coming back to talk about some of the people that are going through. I've had a couple people come up to me, tell me that they've already started
the program,
the strength program. So we're going to have questions from them.
And we'll have Brittney back maybe in a month or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And you can say, Chris, what you told me didn't work and you're worthless.
All right.
And you're going to stand on the table.
Oh, dear. That's fine.
Yep.
But that'd be great to get some feedback, because I'm sure people are going to, well, what happened with Brittney? Did it work or not?
Yeah.
And it seems like people are asking questions from these episodes, which is great, especially if they are proactive and go get their blood work done to see, why every year are they failing in their New Year, New Me diet. Could be something.
I will have my talented spouse in here who can talk about some of the functional medicine blood work. Yeah. And all kinds of cool stuff.
Well, especially, we talked about it a little bit, and that's the difference between men and women. She could really dig into that.
Big time.
Reasons that worked for me to be drinking alcohol like crazy, fast food, and I'm in my mid to late 30s.
And you did, and you just started
a bunch of weight.
Yep, because you got off your butt and started doing something.
Yeah, I don't even think I was on the old Juicola.
Oh, stop.
He's talking about
now.
He's talking about TRT, not he's not talking. And
we'll have. You're saying you're on
steroids. Yeah, he's been accused of it.
Yeah, people say that. People say some people consider TRT steroids.
That's not true.
Right.
What is it?
What
does it stand for?
Testosterone replacement.
Replacement, not addition.
Yeah, because my numbers were that of like a 95-year-old dude.
They were terrible,
and I was 26 or something like that.
So we'll have Carrie on to talk about the hormone stuff too, because she's the best I know in the area on that stuff. Yeah. So
to speak on that, when I got on top of someone today, no, not today, on Thursday.
I don't know how this is starting.
No, well, I mean, you can only talk about this on a JiuJitsu podcast. If you said that anywhere else.
I climbed on top of this dude.
Okay.
And he told me that as soon as I got on top of him, he was like, dang, steroids Bill in the house. That's what he told me.
Were you flattered?
Very much. I was feeling like I kind of was like, I'm doing something now.
You're like, I want to do no-gi right now.
Yeah, immediately. I haven't done no-gi in months because I'm scared of it, but I was ready to do it.
Nice.
I'm going to get that extra small shirt.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
I like where you're going with this.
Hike up the shorts a little bit.
So his comment that was probably coming from a source of insecurity actually made you feel better about yourself.
A little bit. At the same time, it kind of felt like it could be an insult.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying. So someone that is like, well, it can't because your top pressure is good. It must be because you're on steroids.
Right. That's how I kind of was taking it.
But it still made you feel good.
Yeah, I was taking it that way. At first, I was like, so you're just saying, you gave me the strong guy comment. You know, when like a white belt comes in, you're like, man, you're strong. Good job. Yeah. And that's like the ultimate like slap in the face.
I heard that a lot when I did. You just spit.
Yeah, I did.
Strong and spazzy.
Are you laughing so hard because I'm not strong, or because you got that a lot?
I'm laughing because I know what the comment means.
Yeah.
And you saying that you got that a lot is like,
I had the same intensity as a white belt, but no skill,
right?
No technique,
right?
So, yeah, I got
it's the default comment.
You're strong.
If you just destroyed someone and you just want to give them something to like continue doing jiu-jitsu and not quit that night. Dude, you're feeling really strong.
Thank you to everyone that said that.
So I kind of felt like it was that comment.
I see.
Steroid user.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was hurt. But then it brought me back to be like, well, I don't do steroids. So that just means I got good pressure.
Yes. That's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
On that note.
Anything else?
I don't think so, Pookie.
Olivia?
Nope, I'm good.
Excellent. You know, I expect more snarkiness next time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Step
That's
it up.
Okay.
Instagram, Grappling with Podcast. Facebook, Grappling with Podcast. YouTube, we're posting more commentary rolls, snide comments throughout the whole thing. Chris will be on there very soon against Gian.
Oh my God, that was horrific.
That was basically he spread to everybody while he was rolling. I'm gonna bleep that. Actually, we can't have that word in there.
Oh yeah, we can't.
Yeah. So
you just got to bleep that that word. So before he gets us in trouble and pulls off the side here, gets us canceled. I want to thank you again. And I mean this, not many people would come out here and put themselves out here like this for other people's education. And we really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
We'll see you soon.
All righty.
All right.
See ya.
Y'all.
All right. Bye.
Bye.